When it comes to buying paintball gear in 2022, players have a bigger range of options than ever before. Whether it's iconic brands like Planet Eclipse, pro teams like Infamous who are starting to sell both soft and hard goods, or one of the countless manufacturers of custom gear, it's easy to say that anything that you could ever want to play paintball is out there somewhere made by somebody. Naturally, with so many different brands out there, there's going to be a ton of differing opinions that are going to come with it. And out of all these brands, none of them are as polarizing as HK Army has proven to be. So today, I'm really going to try and dive into it and try and figure out how one of the largest brands in paintball is able to draw such a strong ire from its haters while also a super strong loyalty from all of its biggest fans. But real quick, before I do that, I just want to take a couple quick seconds and give a shout out to today's sponsor, Sunday Paintball. So at one point or another, I'm sure we've heard almost every brand in the sport say that their main goal and their main mission is to try and grow the sport as best they can. But Sunday Paintball was built from the ground up on that concept. Like I'm going to mention later in this video, one of the biggest things that holds a lot of people back from playing paintball is the money. And that's where Sunday comes in to try and help out as best they can. For every single dollar that they make, stop fighting. For every dollar that they make, they donate another dollar back into the sport and doing everything they can so that way kids can have more Sundays. Go check them out at sundaypaintball.com. I'll leave a link down in the description for them and do what you can to help out kids have more Sundays. Now back to the video. So originally, HK Army was the party bro rival team to the Iron Kids that had their own soft goods brand called PB Fashion. Like a lot of other smaller brands at the time, they were taking advantage of sublimation style printing, which allowed them to create more loud, creative, and expressive designs without having to worry about the limitations of traditional screen printing up until that point. This also made it more affordable to create larger quantities of product much faster and get it out to the market. Now, already at this point, a lot of older veterans of the sport were already looking down on them because what HK Army and PB Fashion were creating was totally opposite of what they had worked for and put together in the entire time that they had spent building the sport from the ground up. Pretty much what these guys saw as a paintball uniform were screen printed, heavyweight, long sleeve, usually camouflage shirts, upside down visors. Basically, what you wore out on the field was meant for function over fashion. It was about running around the woods, something durable that would hold up without being too crazy and visible, so that way you could hide in your bunkers easier. On the other hand, the sport was starting to morph and evolve, and it was beginning to look a lot more like a mainstream sport. And if you wanted to be taken seriously like a sport that you would see on ESPN, you're going to have to dress like it. At the time, PB Fashion was one of a few different brands that was offering these loud, creative, colorful designs. You didn't have to worry about being camouflaged and hiding in the woods. It wasn't about being sneaky anymore. This gave players an opportunity to be more creative, come up with whatever team names, team mascots, whatever colors, designs, anything that they wanted to represent themselves on the field, they had the ability to do so. And brands like PB Fashion, Paintball Junkies, and others were there to meet that need. Another really funny thing that I'm sure a lot of younger and newer players don't realize is that back then, having the HK Army skull and crossbones on your headband or somewhere in your PB Nation or MySpace profile pic actually gave you the kind of clout that you would get with OG Sandanas in the 2010s. So going into this video, I reached out to a ton of different people. A lot of people that I've done media coverage for. I went to both my local fields and drove up to Level Up in Columbus. Tried to talk to as many just random kids as I could there. Try to get as many opinions as I could, both fans and haters of HK Army. Now, one thing that I want to make explicitly clear before I break this down is that nothing that I'm about to say is going to have anything to do with the quality of the gear. It doesn't matter if you're using just the cheapest stuff out there or if you have the most expensive pair of pants or bottoms that Carbon or Dye sells. It all tears, it all rips, fabric's fabric, seams are seams. It's an aggressive sport. These front guys out here are doing all kinds of crazy slides and dives. You know, sometimes you just hit the ground right and your stuff rips. So I don't want that to be any kind of factor in how I'm judging anything. Now, the first thing that I noticed right away is that generally speaking, older and more experienced players are usually the ones who hate on HK Army the most. Funny enough, I actually had a few different people express the exact same sentiment about them. One of them described HK Army as like the Zoomies of paintball. When you're a younger kid, you think it's the coolest store in the mall, but as you kind of grow up and mature a little bit more, you kind of realize it's one of the lamer stores. Another guy worded it as HK Army is like the cool popular kids in high school that you wanted to be like, but then after you graduated, you kind of realize how much they sucked. And I think the biggest thing that they all really agreed on is that they feel like HK Army doesn't really market itself to them, that they're kind of focused more on a younger, more impressionable crowd. Another thing that a lot of people mentioned that I do also have really strong feelings for is their usage of bootleg media and pop culture imagery, concepts, and artwork that they just kind of slap on any headband, barrel cover, t-shirt, just stuff that, you know, usually younger kids are look at and think, oh, cool, it's like Baby Yoda, but also HK Army. I like Star Wars and Paintball. And it's not just pop culture references that they like to bite. It's also other brands and their designs, like the Exalt Death Grips, and then also the JT Team Pants. Anyone who's been in the sport for a while can probably go on their website and find a few other things that clearly came from and were very strongly inspired by other brands, but that's another video for another day. I know HK Army's not the only person doing that in the scene, and I'm not going to dive into that here. Now, I definitely do agree with these guys on a lot of these points, but all these negative things that we were talking about when it comes to their target demographic, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this is actually a lot more positive than I thought it was. So when you scroll through HK Army's website, you realize very, very quickly that these guys definitely have the largest lineup of paintball gear out of any other brand in the sport. But what's most important is the offerings that they have for newer players. In my opinion, money is the biggest threshold that keeps a lot of people from getting into the sport in the first place, especially when you're putting together your first gun setup. But HK Army offers a budget version of every single piece of gear that you need to get you on the field. Now, obviously steel tanks aren't going to be as lightweight as carbon fiber tanks, and they don't offer the same capacity. However, when they cost less than a quarter of the price of a carbon fiber tank, it's an easy corner to cut for anyone that's just trying to get out on the field. The Saber might just be a Spider clone, but those Spiders were good enough for a lot of you guys when you were young, had no money, and just wanted to get outside on a weekend and go play some paintball. And if an old Revy loader was good enough for your dad on top of their old autococker or automag before today's BPS caps, then I think you'll be fine using an HK Army speed loader. I mean, it was good enough for Dynasty to play with during NXL events, so can't be all that bad. So at this point, I'm supposed to dive into everything that the fans and supporters of HK Army told me. And I'm going to dig into it and see exactly what it is about this brand that makes these kids love it so much. And honestly, it got kind of frustrating because I just wanted more answers. I wanted more information. I wanted someone to give me more of a reason why they love showing up to their field every single weekend and head to toe purple and teal. But as I kind of thought about it more, I realized that while I could only get one answer out of everyone, it was actually really wholesome. It basically just all boiled down to the fact that they just thought HK Army was cool. They liked the style. They liked that they were able to get a matching jersey, pants, pod pack, and gloves in their favorite color. A lot of them liked HK Army sponsored teams. A bunch of them liked watching their YouTube channel and their TikTok account, being able to see lots of cool highlight videos posted after every single NXL event, being able to see Mark and the whole warehouse crew running around doing their antics on the day-to-day. Now, I'd be lying if I said that I've never made any judgments about the kids that show up to the field in full HK fits. I mean, I remember my first major event that I went to, there was an HK Army tent there, and it was just full of dudes slamming White Claws and blasting just crazy EDM music the whole weekend, and I just kind of looked over and just thought, you know, maybe that's just not my vibe. I'd also be lying if I said that I'm never gonna meme on them ever again. Now, the most important conclusion that I've drawn out of all this is that I think we need to be a little bit more appreciative of HK Army and what they're doing to grow the sport. These guys are doing so much to bring new players in every single day. They have the largest social media presence out there, and they're able to outfit new players literally from head to toe in any piece of gear that they can need to get out on the field. Now, I'm sure that a lot of people find that loud, crazy party bro vibe that Mark Crescent has in all of his videos is pretty obnoxious, but for another person, it's probably really exciting. It makes paintball look exciting. It gets them excited about going outside and playing paintball. I really hope that moving forward, when we go out to our local fields and see these kids showing up in head-to-toe HK Army, we aren't just looking at them as someone who drank the Crescent Kool-Aid. And we got to remember that these are kids and people that are just as excited, maybe even more excited, to get outside and play paintball than you were that weekend. Another thing to keep in mind is a lot of these younger kids especially, they probably had to sacrifice slots on their Christmas or birthday lists. They may have had to do chores or mowed lawns or did whatever they could to save up enough allowance so that way they could get that piece of gear, that jersey, the pod pack, whatever it was that made them go out on that field and feel like a champ that weekend, even if it was just for open rec play. You know, I wouldn't be where I'm at in the sport if it wasn't for one of my teammates putting his arm around my shoulder and saying, hey man, we see you out here every weekend. We think you're cool. Would you want to come practice with us sometime? And adding me to my team's group chat. Since then, those guys have become some of my closest friends and one of the best support systems that I have in my life. And I believe that every single player deserves a chance at that, no matter what logos they're wearing when they show up to the field. Let's all try to be a little bit better to each other. Thanks for watching. Paulo, dude, seriously, get out of here, man.